What is up, everybody? Renfail here. Hopefully, you are doing well. Funcom team just did an AMA today during the live stream. We are on June 19th. So, we're going to do a recap now that I've wrapped up the stream for the day. We're going to go through here and check out what they posted on the Reddit AMA here in YouTube format. So, let's dive in. If you haven't already done so, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Don't forget to check out the Dune Awakening playlist down below. And of course, check out the daily streams. Lots of guides down in there, and etc. Looks like here in the AMA, Joel Bylos, creative director, Scott Jr., executive producer, Vijay Sommerback, senior game director, and Ole Andres Haley, lead producer. Looks like they answered questions this morning between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. CEST. I was going to say there was only 2 people to start, and it says they had ended up getting 4 people to and they just wrapped up 3 hours ago. So this happened during the live stream. I didn't want to worry about it until I knew they were going to sit down and get all their answers in. So music's in the background because I love the Dune Awakening music. It's a good thematic thing. We just wrapped up the stream, so I'll just have that playing in the background while we're going, because why not? And just because my character looks badass. Nah. What quality of life plans are in the pipeline? What are PvE plans for the near future? Scott, I actually am going to get my glasses for this part. We have an update in testing that contains a lot of quality of life updates, which we're aiming to release in early July. When we click closer to it being publicly testable, we will release the full patch notes. Too many changes for me to list here, but you'll see it soon. PvE plans in the future for each of our major updates will always contain new story content and new PvE content, which we plan to release the same time as our DLCs come out. Our goal is to have these out every 3 or 4 months. All right, cool. I gotta move my milk crate for my feet, man. I gotta get comfy. Do we plan to add daily and weekly contracts for PvE solo players? Currently, we have the Lands Rad to offer weekly content. This is also Scott. We have read the feedback about some tasks getting locked early, tasks being too hard for solo players, and feedback on the general rewards. We will make improvements to all these features to make sure that anyone who wants to engage with the Lands Rad can, and that they feel that they have rewards that are worth it. In addition, we will be releasing more PvE content with each major update. We'll have more dynamic encounters in the game that will offer variety and new content for you to discover as you are exploring Arrakis. Cool. Once you do all the quests in Haga there aren't any more quests to do, are there any plans on adding repeatable or new contracts with the Coriolis Storm updates? Or are we just supposed to do Landsrad tasks? Joel says yes, there are plans to add new contracts across the board. In addition, the Landsrad itself is supposed to involve more contracts in order to reveal tasks for the houses, as well as contracts that lead into the deep desert. So again, we're at the very beginning of the game. They have a lot more to add, so expect to see additional content being added in the future. Are you at least entertaining the idea? Okay, okay, yeah, hang on. Are you at least entertaining the idea change to make Scout Ornithopters weaponless? And what are your goals regarding changes to PvP in the deep desert now that it's been in the player's hands for a short while? This is from Viljar. As far as PvP in the deep desert, we're currently formulating a plan, considering we want players to make meaningful decisions about what they bring with them and how they outfit their vehicles. We want players, once players engage in PvP, we want the experience to be reliable, responsive, and clearly understood. This determines how PvP as a whole feels and how players make their moment-to-moment decisions in a fight. We want to ensure a more reliable experience in ground combat, so we are continuing to address issues with movement desyncs and rubber banding, as well as ability activation and reliability. Are we going to be able to rename storage containers? Scott says yes. One of the things listed on improving base and resource management. I can't commit to when, but we understand the difficulty managing a huge base with tons of storage containers. Funcom says vehicle naming is also something that will be coming out with the management of inventory bases, which will appear in the inventory drop down of the base so you know which vehicle you're taking resources from. Very cool. Will you change the lands so that players can continue to contribute to it after it has been claimed? Joel says our current plan is to allow your contributions to stack week after week so that small groups and solos can work towards larger rewards over time, and then add more tiers of rewards as new activity drivers in the lands. Right? Okay, cool. Any plans to implement something like faction-based warfare in the deep desert with a war map? PvP in deep desert is bigger at the moment. This is entirely aircraft-based free-for-all. I don't mind having aircraft being able to fight, but would like to see something to encourage more ground combat to make use of skills and gear. The Deep Desert, this is from Ole. Deep Desert will always stay a PvP free-for-all area, but we might consider adding other locations that offer factional warfare. Can we get a Deep Desert zone for only foot combat? It's only air combat at the moment, creating a mode where only bikes and buggies are allowed. Can we get more dungeons with Deep Desert with a variety of bosses, targeted loot farm systems where players can select loot they want to drop? Why would we ever? Yeah, I don't want something where players can select loot. Joel putting his foot down. This is not the plan. However, a lot of adjustments and balancing will drive the Deep Desert towards the core vision, which is people competing over the points of interest. The current balance between vehicles and on foot is not tuned to our liking, and there are multiple changes in the pipeline to address this, as well as bug fixes. We will continue to add dungeons, but we will not be adding targeted loot systems, as the entire point of the Deep Desert is randomization and re-exploration in a loop, and that would be entirely against the gameplay design. Perfect. Are there any plans to make building easier, like being able to replace one floor for another without having to move everything to destroy the current floor? We're planning to add the option to replace one place with another without having to destroy it first. That's good news. Also, I know I asked snapping in the Q&A we did a while back. I would love to see snapping for your interior decorations. Will we ever be able to stack storage boxes? There are ways to do this already using half walls to create shelves? Oh. I didn't know you could flip the half walls to create shelves. I'm going to have to look into that. We are continually looking into ways to improve quality of life, and stacking storage boxes is on the list. I'm playing mostly solo, don't care to go to the desert because I don't want to get bullied by guilds. How can solo players advance the late game without having to join a guild? Oh wow, this is a big answer from Joel. Because there were other people that asked questions about this. Is a huge question, so he answered a lot of things here. What are your plans to improve PvP? We will be addressing respawn times and revives. Full loot is a decree that can be attained via the lands reds. So if you want to make it a reality, you have to compete. There are control points in the Deep Desert already. We have no plans to reduce the Deep Desert size. As we work on the game, we will continue to work on making the PvP more rewarding. I'm sure you will note I'm not being very concrete, but that is because we are planning and watching how people are playing and finding the right points to address. This is, what was the specific question? Yeah, so they're worried about the fact, this guy is like, I want to be able to take people's gear when I kill them. And he said, if you want full loot, this is very important. If you want full loot, then your guild needs to win the lands red, and then you get to vote on that as a decree. And then for the next week, you can have your full loot PvP. But you have to win to get it. It's never going to be, and I love how Joel put his foot down and said, full loot is never going to be part of our system. It's a decree. You want it, you got to earn it. And then you get it for a week. But that's not what the vast majority want, so good luck with that. Can we consolidate sieges and servers? We will do that when it is necessary, when we feel it's necessary. Can the in-game notifications have time associated with player or server time? Yes, this is being improved. When are going to fix the classes quests? We're making multiple improvements. Worth noting that a majority of people have no issue completing them, but we have a few reporting issues. Can we have a deposit all and extract all button for water storage? We are working on it. Can we increase the party size or remove friendly fire between guildmates? No. This is the party size we have chosen for the game, and our encounters in PvP are balanced towards this. Changing it is not in the plans. We also expect guilds to coordinate and work together. Friendly fire is there to ensure that you actually do work on coordinating and working together. Can the map filters be more granular and persistent? We'll look into this. Can the radar top HUD be made more dynamic? No, this is not planned and is very expensive to implement and change. Can we make it easier to distinguish between players and NPCs? Nope, because this is in line with the vision of the game. Can we have an option to skip dialogue? Absolutely not. It is clear from your questions that you value efficiency above all else, but the vision of the game is to value Dune above all else. No. Fucking love Joel's answers, man. No. It is clear from your questions that you value efficiency. We value Dune. We value the lore of the books. Can we remove the mini-map that's between worlds? Nope, that's the vision for the game. Can you make the map feature toggleable? Nope. Okay. Will you be looking at a change that allows us to take a corpse from a storage box and place it directly into a death still? Joel says, my friend, the intentionality of lifting a corpse and placing it in the sacred machine known as the death still is a ritual that must be honored with contemplation of each and every victim that you place within. I was a friend of Jamas. Jamas, Bila Kaifa. This is book lore, man. It gotta be according to the vision of the books. Death stills are an insanely rewarding way to get water. We feel that the current design is in line with convenience given the automated machinery. There's a core difference between Fremen technology and chump technology, and corpses are not compatible with the circuit systems. Book lore, baby. A lot of PvE players feel disheartened and discouraged by the current setup of in-game play. I'm not one of those people. I think it's great. Is PvP is being forced on everyone? That's not true. Are there any considerations to adjust this, perhaps make resources available without having to delve into PvP? I don't think that was an answer to that one. That was a question. How do you plan on fixing the balance on PvP? Surely the scout shouldn't have offensive capabilities of balance. Vizar says, I assume this is in relation to flying vehicles. We are considering, these are things we're considering, equipping a scout ornithopter with pocket pods to reduce overall maneuverability and speed. This will help solidify this module selection of desire to engage combat and balance it versus other combat-focused vehicles. Scout ornithopter rockets costing slightly more heat to fire, limiting its combat usefulness relative to the assault ornithopter. Or scout ornithopter thrusters providing a bonus to the maximum speed of the ornithopter at all times, even while gliding. So those are things they're considering to further differentiate the scout ornithopter from the assault ornithopter in that tier. Cool. Will there be option for duels? Yes, we are planning to add the possibility. Right now, it seems the game is heavily tied to vehicular movement. As someone who wants to be a desert wanderer relying heavily on walking the desert, are there any plans to add something like sand walking, really enjoying the game? We will do walking without rhythm. Okay. I wonder how they're going to do that. Can we have a door tall enough so that the buggy with a mining laser can go through it? We don't have that on a roadmap carefully, but it's a good idea. We'll see what we can do. All right. Why isn't the final trial instanced like the rest? It results in a queue of players lining up dying of thirst. Players are then forced to rush through big story beats so their peers can get it. Ole said, mostly due to technical and time limitations, we fully understand that this is not optimal. We will look at improving this in the future. Okay. Can you please add deposit all water options? Ole says, yes. A deposit all water option is coming. We were just talking about that in stream today because I was sitting there clicking over and over and over to deposit water. Will there be a roadmap published soon? Camille says, we intend to keep you in the loop on what's coming. We'll share our mid to long-term plans soon. However, they may not take the form of a static roadmap asset. Curious if there will be boss fights or raids in dungeons. Funcom says, Ole says we will continue to evolve our PvE content, including adding boss encounters as part of future dungeons. Glad you enjoy it so far. Right now, respecing seems to remove your starting skill, but does not refund the skill point. So if you respec at level 150, you only get 149 back. Scott says this is definitely a bug. Are there plans for map expansion? Ole says we have many plans to expand the game with additional maps in the future, and the Overland map is one of our vehicles to do so. The Dune universe has a lot of history and location worlds to explore. We look forward to continuing to build on top of the foundation we have. Is there going to be a PvE only option for people to farm in-game mats, or is it always going to be something in the deep desert PvP? Scott says our plans for the lands are added to be the end-game PvE content, so we will continue to make adjustments to that feature until both you and we are happy with it. It should feel rewarding for both solo and guild players and offer personal rewards in addition to faction-wide and map rewards. In addition, we will have new PvE maps and content in the future that will offer alternate ways to progress past the gear that is currently available in the Haga Basin. Good to know. Will there be more options for solo players in the deep desert, such as being able to hide in the dunes? Fremen's secrets are known only to the Fremen, says Vitar. We will address what that means sometime in the future. The Fremen are coming. We'll also make scout thopters to be more maneuverable when spec'd for agility. Is the third faction coming to the game going to be House Carino? And Joel says it is not House Carino, but it is coming. I love that answer. How difficult was it to balance the alternate timeline created in the books, and how did it influence some decisions in the game starting moving forward? Only 25 hours in, it's one of the best survival games I've played in a while. Thank you. That's an awesome statement. Funcom says, Joel says that it wasn't particularly difficult once we figured out the alternative timeline. At that point, it was mostly a matter of extrapolating out from some of the core ideas. The rules of the universe remain the same, so elements like dew reapers or sandworms or spice could easily be fleshed out from the descriptions of the books. The storyline, we had more freedom to play with, but Frank Herbert provided a lot of threads with the concept of the Golden Path and the Bene Gesserit breeding programs. For us, it was a lot of fun to try and imitate the beats of Herbert's stories, but with a different set of characters and a different set of objectives, all with the same destination. Frank Herbert was the master of hinting at a lot while saying very little, and our pleasure was in expanding things based on his teases, but it a lot of fun. Are there any plans for new tools like elevator, house buffs, etc.? Scott says we had plans for suspensor elevators in the Rift to allow people to quickly get up and down, but we had to cut the feature for the launch scope. We'll check with the building team to see if this is something we might add to player bases in a future update. The Landsrat is broken. That's just not true. Joel says we will continue to look at the Landsrat and balance things as we go forward. There are multiple activities beyond hiding and resources that require people to do things that cannot be stockpiled. We'll continue to add more for activities. On servers heavily dominated by a single faction, balancing features will begin to kick in, but it has only been 2 weeks, so you need to give this time to get to work. Finally, the third faction will also be changing the entire dynamic when it comes online, so we have to wait to see how that goes. This is great because all the people who rushed to the end game were 2 weeks out, and people are like, make changes. Dude, you rushed. Like, I'm 150 hours in, and I'm still just now getting to T5, and still have stories quests that I haven't done. Like, I can't help it that you like bum rushed to the end game, and you're like, make it different. Do you plan to enable character transfers? Between Sietches is coming soon, along with full visiting with building rights. Between Worlds is likely possible in the future, but not in the short term. Can you make it easier to reach the bank and player boards without having to travel to the location? We will look into adding additional conveniences features, but it is important to us to have certain features that require you to travel to the social areas. As far as vehicle insurance, we don't want you losing your vehicle to a catastrophic setback, so we are looking into ways to ease the loss of specific situations like lag and stuff. Getting eaten by a sandworm, however, always will come with a hefty cost. Vizor says we want to send players to those social hubs, but we're always looking at ways to make things more accessible, and as far as dealing with vehicle loss, we're looking at ways to make it more manageable. So specifically, they're referring to bugged issues, like when you're dying to an accidental thing. Because like if you purposely get caught by the worm, that's a you problem. Or if you purposely get caught by, quicksand. But if you, like, I have a lot of power outages as an example because of where I live at the boonies and internet outages. And if I have an internet outage or power outage and then I come back and my ornithopter is gone because it fell out of the sky and disappeared into a worm or something, that's definitely something that needs to be addressed for sure. Do you have any plans to make endgame more friendly for solo? Scott says we don't want the endgame to be blocked off to solo players, so we'll continue to make improvements to our existing features with the Landsrat and add additional content and features that solo players can engage with. We'll have more information on this in the near future. What's been the biggest surprise following the release of the game? Vijay says we knew that we had a good game, but we were still overwhelmed by how positive the reception has been. Also, we see players have long play sessions, which is great. I mean, I haven't done marathon sessions in a long time, but I've been doing regular 6 to 8 hours a day. And then the first week I did like 12-hour days. And someone said the other day that Shroud has been playing like 11 to 14-hour days for like 2 weeks straight since the game came out. Like 14-hour days regularly, which is ridiculous. People are loving the game. We have Soundlock can become a feature. Ole says that we did explore it during development, but it's tricky to find the fun in that. It also did not make sense to add it since it's something you would learn from the Fremen. We'll consider it again in the future. Will you ever implement a minimap or map? Joel says, nope. I asked the team to remove it. The minimap draws the eye away from the world and distracts from the experience of exploring Arrakis and immersing yourself in Dune. Instead, we moved the design to a more intentional focus on world elements, such as scanning to have the resources shown in 3D space, for hazards like quicksand to be something you plan your route around. Vehicle scanners are your friend, but also just learning to recognize it visually should help. Funcom, your creative director recently had an interview with Code Carnage, talked about the difficulty because you have to make thousands of decisions in the end, hoping they were the right ones. One would expect that the bigger game decisions are harder to decide, which leaves the deep desert endgame highly confusing to me. Could you please elaborate? quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Oh my goodness. Instead of making a whole other in-game PvEs in like the Deep Desert raid bosses, etc., you made it a forced PvP only zone. You're basically designing the in-game around. So if you want 90% of the player base to abandon the game, were you actually hoping to get PvP players in and enjoy the PvP? I'm actually hopeful for the future because of the game, because I refuse to believe that in such a long string of doing every decision right, you'd fail so massively just at the finish line. Wow. I like this. Is Funcom. This is Joel's answer here. I keep saying Funcom because it says Funcom staff team, and I'm in read mode, so I'm not getting to the names. It's like Funcom Joel, Funcom Scott. Joel says, I appreciate the wording and the tone of this compared to some of the other questions about this topic, but because one of the decisions that was made is one you disagree with doesn't mean it's the wrong one. The fact that people continually talk about the endgame and never mention the Landsrad, this is going to be interesting, but are exclusively focused on the deep desert is an indicator to me that we have failed to convey the importance of the system to PvE players. We will add more to refine this. By the way, we have been answering this in every single play session. The deep desert is not PvP. The deep desert is the Landsrad, and the Landsrad is made up of a slew of PvE activities that have nothing to do with PvP. The 1% of gamers who rush to the end because they love PvP are the people who are complaining about that. The rest of us understand that the Landsrad is where it all takes place. Every person who plays our game is a PvE player because 90% of the game is PvE. And then people who want to get to Deep Desert are the people who enjoy both PvE and PvP. But here's the other thing that will either make you happy or unhappy. We will continue to add PvE content to the game. PvE content is expensive to produce. It takes time, but as you correctly have stated, we know how to do it well. So it will continue to be added and progression will be added to those areas accordingly. Whereas the Deep Desert will always be the end game PvP space. It will always be a loop. While the PvE elements of the game continue to expand, and in a few years the overland map might be dotted with dozens of points of interest to explore, the deep desert will still be there. With Coriolis storms, the scouting loop, and the entire vision of what it is, it will be tweaked, but it will remain the PvP stage for the game. There's a balance between these things, and it must be something. It will always be something we work on. Good answer. Do you plan to add farming features? Maybe one day, but not in the near future, says Bajar. Final comment on the case of people building bases to block off ground roads between resources. So climb. Scott says this was hard to tackle in a way that makes everyone happy. There's a limited amount of buildable space in the game, so we don't want to add building blockers. We also don't want to make. We do want to make sure you can access content and points of interest that are unique or required for progression. So we have tried to ensure there is always a viable path to trade posts, faction bases, and story content. You can jump, you can climb, you can fly, Chigawire. Lots of ways to go around if someone has built over a road area. Will hostile PvP animal types be added to the game? Features should be considering many more enemy types long term. Do you plan on releasing a roadmap? They already talked about this elsewhere. What are your thoughts on adding missions that involve raiding spaceships mid-flight? Joel says if we let you raid a Sardaukar ship with an actual Sardaukar instead of those terrible Cho mercs they keep hiring, you'd be killed. Interesting idea, though. We'll keep that in mind. Are you planning to add a faction chat option to communicate with other guilds? Bilzer says something we'll look into. Is there an ETA on the time we wait for the content not being delivered in the Ultimate and Deluxe upgrades? What do you mean? I've got all my stuff. Scott says, I know we had an issue when we first launched due to setup, but that should be resolved. I have everything I've paid for, and he says you should have everything you paid for. So yeah, if you're having bugs with that, you should reach out to them. I don't have any issues. I've got all my Ultimate Edition stuff. Any plans to remove sand from the game? Scott says it's coarse and rough and gets everywhere. Maybe we'll add a map without sand in the future just for you, Anakin. Oh my god! I gotta give that one a thumbs up. That's hilarious. Is there any kind of in-game store for cosmetic? Nope. And no plans to add one. By the way, there's a link to Joel's discussion about how there's never going to be a cash shop for this game. Any plans to address the storage system? Nope, no plans. The volume and slot approach gives us levers to balance this type of logistics. There's just one. Also building inventory things for your various vehicles and storage chests. Player market is barren. It said, regarding the exchange, we're looking at making it more accessible to players while keeping the need to go to the social hubs. Will siege transfers be a possibility in the future? They already answered that. The visiting feature is coming in an upcoming patch. Okay. You will also have all the building permissions when visiting other sieges in your world. Okay. Cool. More building sets coming over time, and the answer to that is yes, more building sets coming over time. Building towers look great for cubes, but triangles lack the ability to fill in gaps. We'll be adding missions and PvE story content. We don't have any concrete plans on expanding individual building sets, but we're continuously assessing needs improvements. We will definitely add more contracts and PvE story content. Can you improve the feeling of cities and outposts? It should be rare that you don't see your friends because they're in a different instance as long as you are in the same world. We will definitely make it possible to toggle walk in cities and outposts. So being able to toggle the walk for role players. Are there any plans to increase rendering distance for vehicles? Camille says we are looking at that internally. Will there be a mini-map? Nope. They already answered that. What is stopping you from allowing us to host our own servers? I don't understand why it has to be locked behind a rental service. Scott says our server infrastructure is complex. We don't have a simple way to package for players right now. In addition to releasing the server binaries, makes it much easier for hackers and cheaters to exploit vulnerabilities. We will need to fix both of these problems before we allow players or non-partners hosting a server. It requires a lot of hardware to run all the maps all the time. If our map was like Conan Exiles, we would have launched a standalone version, but very few people, as it stands right now, would have the ability to set up, operate, and have enough hardware to run the servers. Why can't we travel to the deep desert and decide one assault ornithopter? You could take 3 people with you. It's a total of 4. That's one group. Filter says we're looking at ways to address this. Larger transport thopters, probably. Any server mergers for super low population servers? No, but in a future update, allow players to freely move between sieges in the same world. There are long-term plans for low population servers. We're working on story quests for the next chapters of Book 1, which are included as free content in the base game. As far as factions, we have a plan to add a 3rd one, but we're not going to talk about it officially yet. Are you going to address solo players losing their entire base if they can't play more than 25 days in official servers, taxation, or base shields? Nope, we're not planning on how this works. Not planning to change how this works. Will we ever be able to split water into circuits? Filter says we'll look into it. Someone else complaining about the deep desert. We're currently finalizing our plan for what we will do to address issues like this. We will share this plan once. Yeah, so that's again, it's the 1% complaining about the deep desert, and it's like like he said. I think Joel said in one of the previous ones, he's like, the game's only been out for 2 weeks. The 3rd faction hasn't been introduced yet. We have a lot of road ahead of us before we get to the point where we're willing to start making dramatic changes to the deep desert. Because right now, the big thing is like we gotta make sure everyone understands that it's not about PvP. It's about the Landsrad, and the Landsrad is like 90% PvE. So the first step is making sure that everyone understands what the end game is. It's not PvP. The end game is the Landsrad. And once we get to that point, and we introduce the 3rd faction, we can start looking at addressing other things. Can we have a hotkey to change seats in vehicles? Changing seats in a hotkey is added to one of the first patches of the game, so it's coming in either July or August. So we also got the first confirmation of a patch is going to be in July or August. And so hotkey switches, that's great, man. Be able to change seats is going to be awesome with just a hotkey press. Would it be possible to have one extra shipwreck that is PvE only? We are not adding any more shipwrecks to the South Haga Basin at this point in time. Is the Dune dev team going to address the glaring issue of the inability to deal with base placement? VR says we will always have at least one no building zone path to important points of interest like trade post bases and story areas. It may be inconvenient, but you should always be able to get where you need to go. Again, you can climb, you can jump, Shigawire, you can go around. Like there's just because it's not the quickest way, just because someone built a base in your convenience path. Come on now. Are there any plans to add a build all button? No, this would invalidate the co-op aspect of base building. Okay. I'm just going to read Ole's answers here. Searching all containers by item name, showing match containers with some X-ray vision. Search is coming in future update. No plans for X-ray vision. Deposit all water, deposit all blood buttons. We'll be happy. That's coming in a future update. Being able to move your Chris knife to a storage chest is not intentional or will be removed in an update. A quick unload button says we will consider this for a future update. More story, please. Absolutely, this is the plan. Viable ground PvP. We're continually working to balance PvP and ensure that both ground and airborne PvP is viable for both sides. More viable solo gameplay. No plans for this at the moment. Deep Desert is meant to be a group activity. We will keep adding more solo gameplay to the game in the future, though. So distinction is that solo gameplay is going to be outside of the Deep Desert. There will be more solo activities in the Lands Rad that players can work on, and things of that nature, but the Deep Desert is always meant to be a group-based activity. Why make the DD an in-game exclusive for guilds and PvP players? Scott says we don't want to exclude solo casual or small groups. The Deep Desert will always be PvP, but we will be adding additional content to the game for PvE players and other ways to progress your gear and base beyond what is available in the Haga Basin. Okay. Will there be more building sets? Yep. As well as cosmetics? Yep. Cool. Any plans to implement a way to change how your character looks? Yep. Coming in a future update. Any plans to add a trade board to the trade posts? This is one of the things we're looking at for convenience options, but we have no ETA on that at the moment. Okay. More story content coming? Yep. Are there plans to make vehicles take environmental damage? Storm says, we did try a more realistic approach like this in the past, but the feedback was that it wasn't as fun, so we currently have no plans for this. I also agree. I don't want to have to worry about losing my vehicle because of a crash or because my internet went out and I fell off a cliff or something like that. That would not be fun, so I'm glad they don't have vehicle damage. That may be... Oh, no, here's another one. Anyone addressing large guilds who simply stack guilds and run ops in Discord? What do you intend to do to address Zergs? Scott says 50 people attacking you in the Deep Desert. We monitor the stats on this, and I haven't seen many instances of this scenario happening. So this is interesting. So I need to read the full, because people like to get hyperbole. They like to spit hyperbole. So this person says, "What do you intend? People are ruining the experience of Deep Desert. I'm sure I speak for all of us who feel this way that in PvP, it is being ganged up on by 10 to 50 people in one go, and if you manage to shoot one of their buddies, 10 more show up to increase their odds of success." And I love how Scott says, we monitor the stats on this, and I don't recall seeing many instances of this scenario actually happening. The game is still pretty new, so the Deep Desert generally isn't populated with enough people for this to be happening. Zergs do happen, though, but they are pretty rare across all worlds. If you're talking about getting ganged up on by a group of people when you are solo, that completely happens, and we want to make sure that solo and small groups have a way to participate in the Deep Desert. We will release more details on this, but we want to have there be viable options for solo players to be able to go into the Deep Desert and engage or fly away from any encounter with a group of players they can't win against. Scroll. That may be the end of everything. I'm going to reload one more time. Oh, we got an answer here. What are you going to do to be able to handle losing your ornithopter when you DC or die in the Deep Desert? Scott says, We don't want you to lose your vehicle if you crash or disconnect. In the next hotfix, we've made some improvements so that you will have time to connect and get back to your vehicle. In a future patch, we will look at other ways to decrease the overall setback when losing a vehicle. We don't want this to be a catastrophic loss, especially for solo players. Are you planning to add a clock that shows time on Arrakis? You can currently check the game by pressing T. You can also hold the menu button on the controller. That also allows you to do that. My goodness, there were a lot of questions in this AMA. Oh, a lot of these questions were from like a day ago, it looks like, because we're into the stuff that was posted like back then. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else yet. Well, the good thing to know is that it appears they are definitely, which I knew from before, I knew that there was more story content coming, which is awesome. Because Joel has said that in another place that they were going to be doing story updates in between the DLCs as well. And the DLCs have story stuff that's coming with the DLCs as well as some additional like cosmetic stuff and decorations and building sets and all sorts of other things. I think that's the end. I've done 4 times more reloading and I'm not seeing any more answers. So I think we can consider that to be answered fully. Yeah, good times. I'm having a great time playing the game. It's good to know that we're getting more story content. That's primarily for me as a story player. I'm mostly excited about that. It's also good to know that over time we're going to continue to see ways for players like myself who are mostly solo or playing with a small group of friends in a guild and who are doing mostly PvE. We're going to continue to have additional ways to flesh out our in-game experience and additional ways to get gear beyond what currently exists in the Haga Basin and additional ways to contribute to the Landsred and explore the deep desert without necessarily needing to get involved with that huge guild versus guild stuff. So I'm excited. I've been having a damn good time. Like I said, I'm about 150 hours in right now to the live game with another 100 hours into the beta, and it's the most fun I've had in a live game since I think Star Wars Age of Republic launched back in like 2011, and I think Lord of the Rings Online was before that, was the last one I did. So it's been a fun live service launch for me, and I look forward to more. Daily streams every single day around 4:35 a.m. and there's a massive Dune Awakening playlist down below that you can go watch through and find all my guides and discussion videos, Q&As, and AMA reactions like this as well. So see you next time, everybody. Stay safe and happy gaming.